The dining room was filled with the warm glow of the chandelier when Clara suddenly exploded, her voice slicing through the room like a knife. "Tell me, Marina, how does it feel to be miserable and useless at your age?" she asked with a curled lip, dripping contempt. Marina sat at the table she had helped them choose 3 years earlier, the tablecloth she had ironed that very morning. Jonas kept his eyes fixed on his plate, refusing to look up. 14-year-old Lena stared wide-eyed, shocked. Clara leaned back with a crooked smile, waiting for Marina to crumble like always. But Marina did not crumble. Not that night. Something inside her, something that had been silent for years, rose with painful clarity. She lifted her glass of water and drank slowly, letting the silence stretch across the table like a cold shadow. Then she looked straight into Clara's mocking eyes and spoke with a calm she didn't know she still possessed. "Tell me, Clara, how does it feel to insult the woman who paid your debts and kept this house standing?" Clara's smile vanished. Jonas finally looked up. Lena covered her mouth. And Marina, at 68, felt her voice returning. That night marked the breaking point of something that had begun long before the dinner. Long before the cruel words. It had started quietly, so quietly she barely noticed. Tiny humiliations disguised as jokes. Comments wrapped in fake kindness. Looks sharp enough to cut. But now everything had burst open. And what followed that night would change Marina's life forever. "Let me tell you how I got here," she thought. How a woman who gave everything ended up sleeping beside a laundry room. How the hand that once rocked her son's cradle became the same hand signing $10,000 transfers. It all began 6 years earlier, when Marina lost her husband, Henry. One April afternoon, he collapsed from a sudden heart attack while trimming the bushes in the yard. There was no warning, no final goodbye. One moment he was there, the next he was gone. Marina was left alone in the house where she and Henry had raised Jonas, where every corner held memories she wasn't ready to face. The rooms felt too big, the bed too wide. The silence that followed was a heavy, suffocating thing. Her new companion, whether she wanted it or not. Jonas came to the funeral with Clara, who had been his wife for just a year. Clara wore a tight black dress and heels that echoed across the funeral home floor. She hugged Marina with stiff arms and whispered words that sounded practiced, as if she had rehearsed sympathy in front of a mirror. Jonas looked tired, lost, his tie crooked, his eyes red. He was Marina's only son, her only close family left. After Henry's death, Marina tried desperately to fill the quiet. She went on morning walks, watched afternoon soap operas, called old friends. But sadness followed her everywhere. Maintaining the big house became impossible with her small pension. So Marina sold it and moved into a tiny apartment downtown. She tried to build a routine in the new place, but everything reminded her of the life she'd lost. One evening, Jonas visited and sat across from her, his hands twisting nervously. "Mom, why don't you come live with us?" he asked gently. "The house is big. You won't be alone. We'd love to have you." Clara nodded beside him with a smile that seemed sincere at the time. For the first time in months, Marina felt genuine hope. So that June, Marina moved into their home. First, everything seemed almost perfect. She had her own room on the second floor with a window facing the yard and a private bathroom just for her. She cooked meals Jonas loved as a child. She cleaned without being asked, ironed their clothes, bought groceries, and tried her best to be helpful. Clara worked long hours at a boutique, often returning home late. Jonas worked at a logistics company, always stressed about bills. They complained constantly about money, credit cards, and unexpected expenses. Marina listened quietly from the kitchen, worrying silently. One evening, Jonas sat beside her on the couch. "Mom, I need a favor," he began, voice trembling. "We're struggling financially. Clara has debts from before marriage. Could you help, just for a little while? Maybe, something monthly." Marina saw the shame in his eyes, the hesitation. She saw the little boy he used to be. "Of course, darling," she replied softly. "How much do you need?" Jonas whispered, 5,000. It was more than half her pension, but Marina convinced herself it was temporary. She set up automatic transfers. On the 15th of every month, the money left her account. The first months weren't too hard. Marina cut her personal expenses and stayed home more. It's okay, she told herself. This is what mothers do. But slowly things shifted. Clara's tone became sharp, impatient. She started leaving dirty dishes and clothes everywhere, knowing Marina would pick them up. At the dinner table, Clara scrolled on her phone whenever Marina spoke. Jonas stayed silent, always silent. Then one afternoon, Clara approached with crossed arms. We need more help, Marina. Everything is expensive. Make it 8,000. Marina's heart sank, but she forced a smile and agreed again. A few months later, another request came, this time through Jonas, but the rehearsed tone told Marina whose idea it truly was. Mom, we really need it to be 10,000. Just for a short time. I promise. 10,000. Almost her entire pension. She would be left with barely enough for toiletries and medication. But Marina nodded. Whatever helps, she murmured. Because mothers don't abandon. Because she believed things would one day get better. They never did. Instead, her place in the house began shrinking. Piece by piece. Room by room. Until Marina barely recognized the life she was living. First, Clara announced she needed an office for her growing business. Marina's room was the perfect space. You can use the small room near the laundry, Clara said casually. The new room was dark and smelled damp, but Marina didn't protest. Then, the bathroom she once used became off-limits. We need privacy, Clara insisted. Marina had to use the distant guest bathroom downstairs. Every night she tiptoed through the cold, dark house, praying she wouldn't fall. Soon after, Clara replaced the dining chairs, only 4 this time. Oh, we didn't have space for another, she said. Marina began eating alone. And yet, Marina continued paying the 10,000 every month. She cooked, cleaned, ironed, cared for Lena, and made herself invisible. But one morning while scrubbing the bathroom floor, a whisper rose inside her. I deserve more than this. She froze, the words echoing through her mind. But she pushed them down. Because mothers endure. Still, memories began to haunt her at night. Jonas as a baby, curled against her chest. His toothless smile. The first day of school when he held her hand so tightly she feared his fingers would bruise. Memories of a boy who once needed her. She remembered the nights she rocked him to sleep, humming songs her own mother had sung. She remembered paying for extra classes when he struggled in school, using money Henry earned through long hours. She remembered comforting him after his first heartbreak, when he cried in her arms for hours. Jonas had been her purpose, her joy, but now, the boy she once protected had grown into a man who barely looked at her. The man who once clung to her hand now allowed his wife to treat her like nothing. Marina waited for him to remember. He never did. The humiliations continued. Clara demanded she wash her underwear by hand because the machine doesn't do it right. She ordered Marina to iron bedsheets every few days and polish her shoes before work. Marina obeyed, terrified of being kicked out, terrified of losing the only family she had left. Then one day, Clara returned home with expensive shopping bags, new shoes, designer clothes, a handbag costing more than Marina spent on food in months. She left the receipt on the table. $2,500 for the handbag alone. Marina stared at it quietly, her worn shoes and patched clothes suddenly heavy on her heart. That night Marina couldn't sleep. She lay in the dark room beside the laundry, listening to the dripping faucet, the hum of the washing machine, her own shallow breathing. I don't need permission to start over, another whisper said, bold and frightening. Again she did nothing. Lena was the only light in the growing darkness. The baby arrived 2 years after Marina moved in, and the moment she held her tiny granddaughter, something inside her healed. Lena's trusting eyes were the reminder of everything good Marina had once known. She fed her, rocked her, changed her, loved her. Clara refused to breastfeed. complaining it would ruin her figure. So Marina cared for Lena day and night. Clara appeared only for pictures, smiling perfectly for social media as if she were Mother of the Year. As Lena grew, she clung to Marina more than anyone else. Her first steps were toward her grandmother. Her first words included, "Nana." Marina told her bedtime stories about brave girls who didn't need rescuing. Lena listened with wide-eyed wonder, then hugged her tightly. Marina felt every sacrifice was worth it, until Clara stepped in and decided Marina was spoiling the child. Clara imposed strict rules. No sweets. No bedtime stories after 8. Don't take her outside unless I say so. She even forbade Marina from entering Lena's room at night. The child cried, reaching for Marina as Clara pulled her away, but Marina could only stand there helplessly. And Jonas? He remained silent, always silent. He came home, ate, watched television, and went to bed without asking how his mother was or noticing the pain in his daughter's eyes. The years turned into a monotony of chores, humiliation, and monthly transfers, until one Tuesday afternoon changed everything. That afternoon, Marina was cleaning Jonas and Clara's bedroom. As she dusted the dresser, her hand brushed an envelope hidden under magazines. Fell scattering papers. She didn't intend to look, but one page caught her eye. Credit card bill. Clara's. The amount nearly made her drop the paper. $18,000. But worse were the purchases. Luxury restaurants, spas, designer boutiques, trips Marina never knew about. She sifted through the other papers. More cards, more debts, totaling over $40,000. All while Marina lived beside a laundry room, wearing patched clothes. Her legs weakened. She sat on their pristine bed, numb. Marina suddenly understood. Her $10,000 a month weren't helping the household. They weren't paying bills or supporting her son. They were funding Clara's luxurious lifestyle. Her handbags, her salon visits, her secret weekend trips. Marina put everything back exactly as she'd found it, then walked downstairs on trembling legs. In her tiny room, she sat on the narrow bed, feeling an icy emptiness spread through her chest. For years, she'd believed she was supporting her son. But she had been financing her own mistreatment. Financing the woman who treated her worse than a maid. That night, Clara burst through the door with more shopping bags. New shoes, a bright red dress, accessories that sparkled under the hallway light. She dropped the bags in the entrance like always, expecting Marina to rush over, pick them up, and arrange them neatly in her closet. But Marina didn't move. She stared at the bags, then at Clara. Something inside her had shifted, quietly but powerfully. Clara frowned. "Well, aren't you going to put these away?" she snapped. Marina stood slowly, wiped her hands on her old apron, and for the first time in years, she didn't obey. Clara blinked, surprised. "Marina, did you hear me? I said take these upstairs." Marina looked at her calmly, something firm behind her eyes Clara had never seen. "No," she answered quietly. Clara froze. "What did you say?" Marina didn't raise her voice. "I said no." For a moment, silence filled the hallway, thick and heavy. Clara stepped closer, her tone turning sharp. "You're getting bold, aren't you? Don't forget you live here because we let you." Marina felt an unfamiliar warmth rising in her chest. Not fear but strength. "No," she repeated. "I live here because my son invited me." Clara scoffed loudly. "Jonas won't take your side. He never does." And that was the moment Marina realized the truth. Clara wasn't afraid of losing Jonas's support. She was confident she already owned it. Marina walked past her, leaving the bags where they were. Clara stared after her, stunned. That night, Marina lay awake in her narrow bed, staring at the ceiling. Her heart wasn't racing. She didn't feel guilt. For the first time she felt clarity. A small voice inside whispered, "This ends now." And Marina finally listened. She planned quietly, carefully, for the next morning. At dawn, Marina knocked softly on Jonas's bedroom door. He opened it groggily. "Mom." It's early. What's wrong? Marina stepped in, her hands trembling only slightly. Jonas, we need to talk, she said. He sighed, rubbing his face. Is this about Clara? I'm tired, Mom. Marina met his eyes. I saw the credit card statements. Jonas froze. His shoulders stiffened instantly. Mom, you shouldn't go through our things, he muttered. It was an accident, she replied. But now I know the truth. Jonas sat on the edge of the bed, his expression tightening. Look, Mom. It's complicated. Complicated, Marina repeated, her voice cracking for the first time. Jonas, you let me believe I was helping you. But I wasn't. I was paying for Clara's luxuries. $40,000, Jonas. He winced. I didn't want to stress you, he said softly. So you preferred to let me starve in that little room. Let me go without shoes so Clara could buy handbags? Marina asked. Jonas swallowed hard. Mom, you're making this dramatic. Marina felt something collapse inside her. I gave you everything, she whispered. Everything I had, everything I am. And you let her break me. Jonas looked away. His silence was the loudest answer he could give. Marina straightened slowly. I'm done, she said. Jonas frowned. Done with what? Marina took a breath. With paying. With being your wallet. With being your maid. With being invisible. I'm done. Jonas stood up sharply. Mom, you can't just stop. We're counting on that money. Marina shook her head gently. No, Jonas. Clara is counting on it. And I am done funding her life while sacrificing mine. Jonas's jaw tightened. Clara won't like this. Marina met his eyes. Clara's happiness is no longer my responsibility. When Clara woke later that morning, Jonas had already told her. She stormed into the kitchen, her eyes blazing. So now you're quitting? Clara snapped. After everything we've done for you, Marina looked at her calmly over a cup of tea. You haven't done anything for me, she replied. I've done everything for you. Clara slammed her hand on the counter. You ungrateful old woman. Do you know how much we depend on that money? Marina sipped her tea. Then live within your means, she answered. Clara's mouth fell open. She wasn't used to this version of Marina. Jonas! Clara screamed. Come here now. Jonas walked into the kitchen reluctantly. Mom, he said, please reconsider. You know how stressed we've been. Marina looked at her son and saw the stranger he had become. I begged you for years to see me, she said softly. You never did. Jonas rubbed his temples. Don't do this, Mom. Clara crossed her arms. If she stops paying, she's out. Simple. Marina stood. Then I'll leave, she said. Jonas blinked. Mom, wait. But Marina shook her head. I'm not afraid anymore. Clara laughed. Where will you go? Marina smiled. Somewhere I matter. Marina packed her belongings. What little she had. A few clothes, 2 old shoes, a framed picture of Henry and Jonas from years ago. That was all. Her life had been reduced to a single small suitcase. As she zipped it closed, Lena appeared at the doorway with tears in her eyes. Nana, are you going? The little girl whispered. Marina sat beside her, brushing her hair softly. Yes, my love. I have to. Lena shook her head. But I need you. Marina's chest tightened. You will always have me in your heart, she said. And I will come see you. Lena hugged her tightly, her small arms trembling. Marina kissed her forehead. Be brave, my little star, she whispered. Clara called from upstairs. Lena, come here now. Lena clung to Marina one last time before letting go. Marina lifted her suitcase and walked to the door. Jonas stood nearby, guilt on his face. Mom, I didn't mean for things to get so bad, he said softly. Marina paused. But you let them, she replied. That's what hurts the most. Jonas lowered his eyes. Marina walked out of the house that had never truly felt like home. The sun was blazing as she stepped onto the street, but Marina felt strangely light, as if something heavy had finally fallen off her shoulders. She walked to the nearest bus stop, her suitcase rolling behind her. For the first time in years, she felt control. When she reached the city center, she checked into a small women's shelter. The staff welcomed her warmly, offering her a clean room, a hot shower, and a warm meal. "You're safe here," one of them said with kindness. Marina almost cried. Nobody had said those words to her in a long, long time. In the shelter, Marina met women with stories like hers. Stories of betrayal, neglect, survival. She wasn't alone. She began attending counseling sessions, where she spoke for the first time about the years she had spent shrinking herself. "You deserve a life that loves you back," her counselor said. The words struck deep. Marina spent her afternoons walking around the neighborhood, rediscovering little joys. Fresh air, friendly faces, quiet parks. She began to dream again. Small dreams at first. New shoes, a warm room with sunlight, a phone with her own number. Then bigger dreams started forming too. A month later, Marina received a call from an old friend, Celine, whom she hadn't seen in years. "I heard you're back in town," Celine said warmly. "Come stay with me until you find your footing." Marina hesitated, but Celine insisted. So Marina moved into Celine's cozy home, a place filled with laughter, soft music, and warmth. Celine was divorced, independent, and strong. "You have to stop giving your life away," she told Marina one afternoon. "Start giving it to yourself." Marina nodded slowly. She felt something new in her chest. Not fear. Not sadness. Possibility. With Celine's encouragement, Marina finally cancelled the automatic transfers to Jonas's account. When Jonas called, he didn't sound worried for her. He sounded worried for the money. "Mom, how could you do this?" he demanded. Marina inhaled deeply. "Because I deserve a life too, Jonas." He sighed dramatically. "Clara is furious." Marina smiled gently. "Clara's anger no longer controls me." Jonas paused before murmuring, "Are you coming back?" Marina shook her head, though he couldn't see it. "No, Jonas. Not until you learn how to treat me with respect." The line went silent. For once, she didn't panic. As weeks passed, Marina started doing what she loved: baking. Celine encouraged her to sell her pastries to neighbors, then to a local cafe. People adored her recipes, especially her cinnamon rolls. Soon Marina was earning enough to feel stable. "You're talented," Celine insisted. "Open your own little baking business." Marina laughed at first, but the idea planted itself firmly. She began saving every bit she earned. She smiled more, slept better, felt alive again. For the first time in years, she wasn't shrinking. She was expanding, slowly, beautifully. Meanwhile, Jonas's household began to crumble. Clara was furious about the missing money. "How are we supposed to pay everything now?" she yelled. Jonas snapped back. "They were your debts." The fights grew louder, the tension heavier. Lena often hid in her room, hugging the bedtime stories Marina had once told her. One afternoon, Jonas found Clara packing her belongings. "Where are you going?" he asked. Clara rolled her eyes. "I'm not living like this. I married for comfort, not struggle." She slammed the door and drove off, leaving Jonas and Lena standing in the wreckage. Jonas sat alone that night, realizing the truth he had ignored for years. Marina had been the only person who ever loved him without asking for anything in return. Meanwhile, Marina continued to rebuild her life. She rented a small studio with warm sunlight and soft curtains. She decorated it with thrifted furniture and little plants. "It feels like home," she whispered. She invited Celine for tea, baked muffins for the neighbors, and even joined a book club. Her world, once so small, was blooming again. She felt stronger each day, more herself than she had been in decades. One Saturday morning, there was a knock on Marina's door. When she opened it, she found Lena standing there, her small hands gripping Jonas's. "Nana," Lena whispered with teary eyes. "I missed you." Marina knelt and hugged her tightly. Jonas stood awkwardly behind them. "Mom, I'm sorry," he whispered. Marina rose slowly, studying him. His face looked older, tired, humbled. "I was wrong," he admitted. "I chose comfort over kindness. Forgive me." Marina sighed softly. "I forgave you long ago," she said. "But forgiveness doesn't erase consequences." Jonas nodded, tears forming. "I understand." They sat together in Marina's small living room. Lena curled into her lap. Jonas spoke slowly, carefully. "Mom, I want to fix things. I want to be better. For Lena, for myself." Marina brushed Lena's hair gently. "Change starts with honesty," she said. "And with respect." Jonas nodded eagerly. "I'll prove it. Just don't shut me out." Marina smiled sadly. "I never wanted to shut you out. I just needed to stop losing myself." Jonas lowered his head. "I see that now." For the first time in years, their conversation felt real, painful but honest. Over the next weeks, Jonas visited regularly, bringing Lena with him. They spent afternoons baking with Marina or walking in the park. Jonas apologized again and again, not with words only but with effort. He began parenting Lena properly. He cleaned his house. He cooked meals. Marina watched quietly, surprised by the transformation. One evening Jonas said, "I don't deserve your love, Mom." Marina answered gently, "Love isn't about deserving. It's about choosing, and I choose to heal." Jonas nodded. He was healing too. Months later, Marina finally opened her own small bakery, a warm, bright shop filled with the smell of cinnamon and fresh bread. A sign hung above the counter, "New Beginnings Bakery." On opening day, Lena ran in with flowers. Jonas followed with a proud smile. Celine cheered loudly. Marina looked around the cozy shop, her heart swelling. The woman who once slept beside a laundry room now owned a space filled with joy, independence, and dignity. Marina exhaled softly. She had finally reclaimed her life. And this time, she was living it for herself.